talking about how communicators move people. 2022 has brought a new age of employee communication where we're no longer measured by clicks and engagement, but by our ability to create impact. So our next speakers will look at what's changed and what Staffbase is doing to rise to the challenge. And I'm very lucky to introduce two speakers that I know very well, Staffbase's Head of Product Marketing, Lara Dobson, and our own CEO, Dr. Martin Böhringer. Welcome.
Thank you, Adam. Lara, is it just me, or is it a bit weird to stand in front of a gigantic,
yeah, it's very
good-looking
awkward.
picture of yourself?
Yeah.
And good morning, everyone. It's really great to see you all here, finally in person again. Let me also personally welcome you to the 2022 edition of the Voices conference in London. The Voices is the largest communications festival in the world across multiple cities. So next week we are in New York City and the week after in Berlin. But actually it has grown in the past 2 years as a virtual conference. So I still remember the first Voices meetup we had in London, actually 3 years ago, with 15 people in a meeting room, in a co-working place. And I saw Mark somewhere here, our first partner actually, the first Staffbase partner in the UK. Mark, you were one of those 15. Thanks for coming back, and it's amazing to see how the community has grown, and it's fantastic to see you in person. Lara, do you still remember your last in-person conference?
Yes, I do. I'm pretty sure it was Voices in 2019 in Berlin, where we had like 600 participants, and I was really new to Staffbase at the time, so it was a really special experience, and honestly, it feels like ages ago.
Yeah, that's right. So I feel that the world is not the same anymore. I mean, there's been so much going on in the past 3 years, good stuff, but also a lot of bad stuff. And to me personally, it feels like communications has been right in the center of the storm. Just last week, we took in a family of Ukrainian refugees into our home, and they speak Russian. They have relatives in Russia. But if they would now speak to each other, they wouldn't understand a single word of what they are saying, because they live in so different realities. And that's something which is completely mind-blowing to me. How can this still be possible? Right? And I mean, propaganda is like the black sheep of the communications family, but it's still family. And I would argue that what's happening right now is a really powerful demonstration of what communications actually can do with and to people. Right? And I would just have never expected that it's even possible to create that kind of division between people. Not today. Because in my head it was wired like, if you want to control people's hearts and minds, you have to control the message, and thus you have to control the channel. But that's not true anymore, right? I mean, even months into the escalation, channels like YouTube and Telegram are widely available and used by everyone, right? So it's not true that you have to control the channel. But what we are seeing out there is that you have to control the narrative. You have to control that story people actually believe in. And that's not just something which evolved in the past weeks and months, but we've also seen that with other conflicts between very different views of the world, right, around COVID, around climate change. So the question, of course, is how does this impact us in employee communications? Because yes, of course, we are not into propaganda, I hope. We are into employee comms. But I would argue it has a really big impact on us. So first, I believe we can't hide behind our internal channels anymore. The narrative does not stop at the firewall, and it has to stand its ground with our employees, no matter what kind of channels they consume and read news in. Secondly, I think this whole situation makes our job harder, a lot harder, because every time our colleagues look at their smartphone, they are confronted with all kinds of different versions of reality. And so getting everyone on the same page is a really tough job right now. And third, I think it makes our job incredibly important. Because if people cannot even agree on a shared view of what's going on in the world, I mean, how should it be possible for them to act as one, as a team, as a department, or even as a company? To act, however, is what companies have to do right now. Right? So everywhere we see this massive need for fast change. Right? There's climate change, revolutionizing whole industries, hybrid work, Jenny talked about that a few seconds ago. You have Generation Y entering the workplace. So we see many companies having transformations and change projects, multiple at the same time, being really critical. But it's impossible to actually do that if you can't even get people to agree on a shared view of what's going on, what the challenges are, and where we should go. Fortunately, we have a secret superpower in internal comms, and this is that people actually trust us.
That's absolutely right, Martin. In 2022, people actually rate their employer as their most trusted source of information. I think that's increased a lot during COVID. And research actually shows that close proximity is a top driver of trust. So being at the same company, serving the same customers, and working on the same products and services breeds kind of a shared identity, which in turn creates trust.
Yeah, and I think that's a superpower you can't overestimate. Right? It's a really strong currency, and it means that we really have a chance to make an impact. I mean, internally, but also externally on society. But let's talk about our internal impact first. So when I talk to CEOs of our customers, at some point in the conversation, we always end up talking about the transformation they see in front of them, right? So it's usually do or die. They see it very clearly, right? So we are a traditional car company. We have to transform into EV. Now, it's clear we have to go there. Now, let's go there, but then they look around them and they see that their organization just doesn't follow. Right? But what they actually need, what they are missing is, they want to be that captain of a pirate ship, screaming, everyone should go left now, and then they want their organization to go left, and everyone should go right, and they want everyone to go right. But that's not what they are seeing, right? So people don't really understand what the change is about and why they should do it. The past way to approach such kind of change would be to bring in a few management consultants and do an org chart analysis, business unit analysis, adjust some processes and tools, and then have a multi-year transformation project. But that's just too little, too late. When I talk to VCOs, they want the change now, and they say, if we still do what we do 5 years from now, we will be gone. Right? So it's too little, too late, and we need all hands on deck to actually make it happen. That kind of thinking needs a new form of leadership which actually values the role of the workforce, not just as someone who does the job, but someone who actually is the company, as Jenny just also said it, to lead the company into the future.
Yeah, and we actually see that in the data. Workforce now belongs to the top 3 CEO priorities, and that's increased nearly 50% in the last 2 years.
I mean, 50% in 2 years, right? So the workforce is really the rising star of CEO priorities. I think it's really mind-blowing. And it shows that CEOs see employees as their partner in crime for the change they have to do. And we also see that many leaders actually understand that now, that their job is to guide the way, right? To define the mission and the vision, break it down into smaller pieces, and actually get buy-in from everyone. And I would argue that employee communications is the center of where CEOs expect to get support on that journey.
So if we look at the Gallagher State of the Sector report, we actually see a 50% increase average in internal communications budgets between 2021 and 2022. Nearly all companies now consider internal communications as the owner of the corporate narrative. But with great power kind of comes great responsibility, and being in the spotlight and getting more budget also means that there's higher expectations on internal communicators to deliver impact. And impact means, impact on how the employees connect to the corporate narrative.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is a gigantic change and a really fast change. And I'm also, telling my personal story. I'm new to the communications community. So when we founded Staffbase, I was an IT person. I had nothing to do with communications. And I'm really impressed to see that rapid change that community is going through. Because when we started 8 years ago, I would argue that most communicators I met were in a reactive broadcasting mode. So they would usually learn about news, last one in a row, right? And then we're supposed to come up with some kind of article and publish it somewhere. Just get it done. Maybe it sounds familiar. Hopefully not, not anymore. Many didn't even measure their success. And if they would do, it was descriptive metrics like numbers of views on an article. We then saw this wave of employee engagement and well-being. So we saw communicators expanding their role with a goal to become community managers or create good vibes and trigger two-way conversations. Now, those two ingredients are really important. I think it's part of a good mix of communications. However, given the challenges we have at hand, I would argue you can have the most accurately updated workforce, the most happy workforce, and you still miss the train to transform your hearts and minds as an organization. And this then leads to happy, well-informed employees losing their jobs. It's just not enough. And I believe communicators have to partner with senior leadership to align with strategic priorities, to then shift people's hearts and minds in the right direction altogether. And this is how communication actually can create real impact. I think we have some slides here. Oh, yeah.
Huh?
Don't worry, it's a clicker problem. Okay. So, impact is not measured by clicks or engagement. Right? Impact is measured by approval rates to company vision, employee behavior, and eventually real business results. And if this succeeds, employee comms is mission critical. And this is what we also see in the conversations with CEOs. Right? They see more and more that employee comms is not just a nice to have, but it's a must have on their journey to actually transform the company. Lara, you're spending a lot of time also with research analysts and experts in the field. So what's your perspective on where we are in that journey?
Yeah. So in 2018, when I started looking into employee communications and how it's perceived by the world's business analysts, kind of the likes of Gartner, Forrester, and McKinsey, the first big takeaway that I had was that there was actually very little being said. If you have a look at this image, most of the research at the time was kind of focused on schemes like this that were very much top-down or broadcast, like Martin put it. The revolutionary thinking at the time was kind of just about listening to employees, getting their feedback, and iterating on messaging accordingly. So there was kind of a huge gap there between the importance and potential that we saw in employee communications versus how businesses were thinking about employee communications. And of course, misunderstanding of the profession also breeds misunderstanding around the needs of the professionals. And so a lot of the customers that we were talking to at the time were really struggling to get resources, be it headcount or budget for technology. If we fast forward to 2022, though, there's a lovely and better picture. What we see here is that analysts like Gartner have started to acknowledge the pivotal role of employee communications to spark behavioral change that drives transformation. They have also acknowledged, however, that there's an increasing amount of complexity out there that employee communicators need to deal with. If we look at the view of Forrester, they say, communications professionals must navigate an increasingly complex digital channel landscape and messaging minefield.
Oh, God, a complex minefield. I mean, this sounds pretty scary, right? Is it really that bad?
Yeah, I mean, it basically means that analysts are suggesting pretty sophisticated tools that are needed to navigate this complexity and elevate strategy. But we've also done some of our own research to sort of look into the reality of how things look today. What we've seen is that communications professionals have made a lot of progress on updating their channels. Many of them have also been able to increase the size of their team and their budget. But the data does still show a huge gap, and that's essentially at the baseline where internal communication starts to create value, which is strategic alignment and planning. We recently conducted an IC maturity survey with 1,600 participants. 55% say that their communication goals are not actually known to the ones responsible for implementing them, so their team. 2/3 say that those goals specifically are developed in organizational silos, so we have resources that are being spent on the wrong priorities. And 75%, and I found this pretty jarring actually, was that communicators spent most of their time reacting to requests to get stuff out. So this essentially leaves them no time for strategy. They're basically running a broadcasting office, and people are overwhelmed and need to navigate this channel minefield, I guess, and can't really do the stuff they really want to because of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's where we come in, right? Because we can actually change that. We can solve that. It's a process issue. It's a tool issue, and we've worked with communications teams across the globe to analyze the problem and understand how can we actually solve that and set communications up for real impact. So today I'm really proud to launch Staffbase Communications Control, the first operating system for communication teams. Control starts with exactly that strategic alignment piece, which is missing in many teams we've talked to, and align communications across leadership, but also within the communications teams. It lets you organize the complete communication cycle from across all your channels, including idea generation, topic planning, task and approval management, and campaign orchestration. The whole idea is that you can orchestrate communication work even for the largest and most complex organization across central and distributed communicators, full-time communicators, and line management, aka part-time communicators. The idea is also to put teams 100% in control of what's happening and provide leaders with a bird's eye view of what's going on in communications. There's a big focus on task management to streamline communication work across all the different stakeholders. And there's also a workflow engine to involve the stakeholders very early with approval processes. The core of everything is that you have team-wide briefings, so a very lightweight way to get alignment and buy-in across the whole team and avoid double work. This is already live with a small group of customers, and the largest one has actually 400 communicators working on that platform, planning and orchestrating news across the Staffbase employee app, the intranet, social media, and a dozen other channels. We believe that this is the start of a new age of employee communications, and it will start with a public launch of Communications Control later this year.
You've left me with some big shoes to fill with your announcement there. Okay, so after planning and executing, you probably want to measure what you've done. So Staffbase actually already has extensive analytics for individual channels to look into how those are working, and now we are trying to bring all of those things together. So what we're about to do is introduce an omni-channel update to our communications intelligence module. This is going to allow teams to understand which channels create the most impact and also how users interact with those channels in great detail. Control and intelligence are actually a part of a complete studio makeover that we've worked on this year. Our new studio, I'm pretty sure, is the only true omni-channel CMS for employee communications. And this year we are releasing a new dashboard that gives communicators an overview of activities and tasks across all of their channels, making it a lot easier to navigate the complexity that we see today. Finally, our studio comes with a very lovely and handy editorial calendar. This is kind of a lightweight version of Staffbase Control for smaller teams that don't necessarily need the whole operating system. And we've launched this year, and it is available now.
Cool. So sounds like we have a plan, Lara.
Yes, we do.
However, even the best plan fails if you don't have effective channels for your communication. I mean, this is where Staffbase comes from. We invented the employee app 8 years ago. And now for 5 quarters in a row, both the employee app and the intranet's products have been ranked #1 for highest user adoption and ease of use by our customers. So to all the customers here in the audience, thank you also for that great feedback. This year, we want to level them up again. So you're looking at a sneak peek of a complete redesign of those two channels, letting your communication shine and build your brand and your own communications identity. Now, the employee app and the intranet are fantastic channels and your own channels to actually make an impact with internal comms. But we also realize that in many companies, there are more touch points where actually employee experience is happening. And we see a clear need for communicators to take ownership of those touch points to ensure consistency, which is a foundation for impact. So therefore, we are bringing that best-in-class communications experience, you know, from the employee app and from the Staffbase intranet to SharePoint and Teams. The amazing team of the Microsoft experts from Valo joined the Staffbase family actually last year. There's a booth over there, so if you want to talk to the team, make sure to approach them. And they provide you with the chance to just flip a switch and turn SharePoint and Teams into a great employee experience, which is fully integrated with the Staffbase Studio. So all the things you've just seen with the editorial calendar and the planning and the approval processes will seamlessly also work with SharePoint and Teams. We are also seeing our most successful customers build an impactful communication central using a combination of all these channels. So we asked our VP of Product Management, Martin Böhringer, to share what arguably is the most exciting customer story for Staffbase this year.
One of our greatest achievements as a product organization this year was supporting the launch of DPDHL's Communication Hub to 500,000 employees across the world. The scale of this rollout was tremendous and utilized our products across the board: app, intranet, SharePoint, and Teams. As a product organization, we worked closely together with the customer to make sure that the system could support 1,500 editors worldwide with multi-language instances across 150 countries. They also used 1,400 user groups to create targeted and personalized user experiences for all of their employees.
Wow. So just to recap, I mean, 500,000 people, it's already a lot. But the key thing here is 1,400 different versions of the same experience, right? So they identified 1,400 different personas, and they deliver an individualized employee experience throughout all the 4 touch points, because some people you better reach on Microsoft Teams and others with an employee app. Lara, what else do we have in store?
Quite a lot. Okay, so as we talked about earlier, we are in a messaging minefield. Communicators have to increase the volume that they're communicating across multiple channels and also include multiple voices. And the other challenge there is that they have to get those messages out very fast. Speed over perfection is key to winning in this race. We are announcing today an expansion of our communication boosters, cutting through the noise to the whole new level. This is, basically the addition of, we include employee email, screens, alerts, which is going to be an SMS functionality to reach employees in moments that matter, and additionally, social. So we know that many communicators are actually also responsible for getting messages out to employees on the other side of the firewall. So we're going to be addressing that with social channels. I want to talk a little bit about our email functionality that was new this year. This year we introduced a completely new, fully integrated email tool. We see that a lot of the collaboration noise that was happening through email has moved to Teams now. And so inboxes are like a little bit more opened up for messages. And so getting a well-crafted email that's personalized is like arguably like getting a handwritten letter these days, we think, as long as it's not somebody trying to sell you something. And so, we've launched this year. And we're going to have, I think, Corey is going to talk about kind of how he sees the revival of email as a channel for internal communications.
Our goal with Staffbase email is to provide communicators with the easiest possible way to cut through the noise and drive impactful email communication. We see email as a communication channel that's not just for newsletters and drive impactful email communication. We see email as a communication channel that's not just for newsletters, but especially also for curated recaps and summaries of communication in the app or the internet. We made curating this content in emails extremely simple with a drag and drop editor, and we're already seeing comms teams succeed in driving engagement with this approach. We're increasing the impact of communications for nearly 1,000 communications teams, reaching over 8 million employees globally.
All right. So, in the sense of expansion, excellent segue. We're going to talk also about our digital signage solution. This year, we also launched a way for communicators to publish straight to company screens. Basically, they can use this functionality to amplify messages and also utilize QR codes to send people back to their communications central. So this way, your messages are everywhere and nobody can escape them.
All right. Wow, this was a fireworks of new features.
Yeah.
So let's recap. So today we we announced a big update for the Staffbase Studio, including the all-new communications control, the operating system for communication teams. We also showed how a unified Comms Central across all the employee apps, intranet, Teams, and SharePoint, all your channels, can actually provide a consistent communications experience. And finally, we announced a major update to the amplifier for communicators, the Staffbase boosters. So as a product company on a mission to support communication teams with the best toolset, we are really proud of all those new developments. However, Lara, I think there's more.
There's always more. So I think we know employee communications is changing. There's pressure to navigate this increasingly complex landscape and also create impact. And we don't think that anybody can do this alone. We've invested in supporting communications professionals with non-tech solutions, and our Staffbase community creates opportunities for networking, exchange, thought leadership, et cetera, to provide people support to level up their communications.
That's basically why we're here as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So as I spoke to earlier, we had implemented a survey around our IC maturity model with 1,600 participants. That's actually more than the Gallagher State of the Sector. And we found that the average score was 4.9 out of 10 points. We also conducted a salary report this year. Not sure if you've seen it. And we found in there that high earners are likely to have a minimum of one accreditation or credential. And so we decided to go really big this year with helping communicators succeed. So as part of our commitment to elevate the profession, we are announcing today the Staffbase campus. I brought a message from Ryan to tell you what's in store.
Hi everyone, my name's Ryan Chintzes and I'm the Director of Online Education for Staffbase. In the coming months, we're going to offer our closest friends and family early access to our very first strategy micro-credential. If you're interested in coming and learning with us, pre-register at campus.staffbase.com. Then, when the campus doors finally open, you'll be the first to know.
Yeah, so Staffbase Campus, it's supposed to become the leading place for communicators to learn and get certified. So make sure to reserve your seat today. You'll find the QR code over there. I hope it works from a distance. And we'd also appreciate if you could help the community by participating in the new round of a salary survey. That's the second QR code over there. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.